Hi all, welcome to another episode in the Leading Safely podcast. For those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, you may have seen my post commemorating the disaster that was the Deepwater Horizon. Today, I would like to continue that commemoration with a deeper dive into that event, what went wrong and some of the key learnings that have come from it, because whilst April 20 was the anniversary of the event, today, the day that I put this episode together, is actually the day it sank 13 years ago, April 22nd. The Deepwater Horizon rig was a state-of-the-art, dynamically positioned, semi-submersible drilling rig built in 2001 by South Korean company Hyundai Heavy Industries. Owned by Transocean and leased to BP, the rig was designed for drilling wells in ultra-deep waters and harsh environmental conditions. Over the years, Deepwater Horizon drilled some of the deepest and most challenging wells in the Gulf of Mexico, including the Tiber oil field, which was discovered in 2009. The Macondo Well Project was an exploratory well located in the Mississippi Canyon Block 252 of the Gulf of Mexico, about 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana. The project, operated by BP, aimed to tap into an oil reservoir deep beneath the ocean floor. The drilling began in October 2009, but the project encountered multiple challenges, including equipment malfunctions, drilling mud losses, and delays. As I understand it, deepwater drilling plays a vital role in the oil and gas industry, as it allows companies to access previously untapped reserves of hydrocarbons. As easily accessible oil and gas reserves become depleted, deepwater drilling has become increasingly important to meet the world's growing energy demands. This type of drilling presents unique technological and environmental challenges, but also offers the potential for significant rewards in terms of energy production. The oil well over which the rig was positioned was located on the seabed, 4,993 feet or 1,522 metres below the surface, and extended approximately 18,000 feet, 5,486 metres into the rock. On April 20, 2010, the drilling activities were completed after several productive oil and gas zones had been discovered at Macondo, and the crew was performing a series of steps to temporarily abandon the well. Abandonment activities would essentially plug the well so that the rig could move onto a new drilling site, and a production installation could return to the Macondo site at a later date to extract the hydrocarbons. BP's temporary abandonment plan called for the removal of most of the drilling fluid column in the well before installation of a surface cement plug. Earlier, a critical cement barrier intended to keep the hydrocarbons below the sea floor had not been effectively installed at the bottom of the well, and the cement integrity was not conducted in a way that provided a clear pass or fail result to the workers. Both BP and Transocean personnel on the Deepwater Horizon rig misinterpreted the test results concerning the cement integrity, leading them to erroneously believe that the hydrocarbon-bearing zone at the bottom of the well had been sealed, when in fact it wasn't. When the drilling fluid column was removed, pressure gradually reduced above the hydrocarbon reservoir at the bottom of the well. Eventually, this action allowed hydrocarbons to flow past the failed cement barrier and up towards the Deepwater Horizon. Meanwhile, because of a failure to recognise the increase in fluids from the well, the crew continued to remove more of the drilling fluid column, causing both the hydrocarbon influx rate into the well and movement of the hydrocarbons towards the rig to increase. The hydrocarbons continued to flow from the reservoir for almost an hour without human intervention or the activation of automated controls. The force of the hydrocarbons accelerating up the mile-long drilling riser resulted in well fluids gushing onto the drilling rig floor, a blowout. At this point, the crew took action to activate the blowout preventer, or the BOP. This safety-critical element, located at the sea floor, temporarily sealed the well, but could not stop the hydrocarbons that had already travelled above the BOP from releasing onto the rig. Once oil and gas had risen above the BOP, the only action that the crew could take was to divert it to a safer location than onto the rig floor. However, the flow from the diverter had been preset to route well fluids to the mud-gas separator, rather than over the side of the Deepwater Horizon. The mud-gas separator was rapidly overwhelmed, as it was not designed to safely handle a flow of the magnitude of the Macondo blowout. As a result, drilling mud and hydrocarbons rained down onto the rig floor. The hydrocarbons found an ignition source, and explosions and fire ensued. Both manual and automated emergency systems within the blowout preventer were activated in an attempt to shear the drill pipe and seal the well. However, pressures in the well had caused the drill pipe to buckle, which inhibited the BOP from sealing the well. The explosion and the fire resulted in 11 crew members suffering fatal injuries and 17 others being critically injured. The Deepwater Horizon rig sank on April 22, 2010, about 36 hours after the initial explosions. Approximately 5 million barrels of oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico. Ultimately, in the hours leading up to the incident, no effective barriers were in place to prevent or mitigate a blowout. The physical barriers intended to prevent such a disaster were not properly designed for the well conditions, constructed, tested, or maintained, or they had been removed. The management systems intended to ensure the required functionality, availability, and reliability of these barriers was inadequate. An examination of the treatment of safety critical equipment and tasks at Macondo, such as the BOP and the cement barrier testing, revealed opportunities for further improvements in effective barrier safety management. Furthermore, a comparison of the US regulatory requirements for these safety critical elements to other international offshore regimes illustrated gaps in the US model and offered support for further post-Macondo changes to the US offshore safety regulations. For me, there were many key learnings from this event, and as per one of the 5 HOP principles, context is everything. It is easy for us to take a traditional safety view and say it was operator error or complacency or even poor decision making. But the context behind why the critical stakeholders in this event made those choices on that day, the day before, and the weeks and even years leading up to this event are what stands out and what needs to be considered. The rig did not catch fire and sink because of one individual or because of many. It caught fire and sank because of a series of intrinsic and highly important systemic and organisational factors that were not addressed. To quote the BP investigation report directly, the team did not identify any single action or inaction that caused this accident. Rather, a complex and interlinked series of mechanical failures, human judgments, engineering design, operational implementation, and team interfaces came together to allow the initiation and escalation of the accident. Multiple companies, work teams, and circumstances were involved over time. So let's take a look at some of the key areas for learning. Firstly, complexity and interdependence. The event demonstrated the complex and interdependent nature of the systems and processes involved in offshore drilling. For example, the failure of the cement barriers, the shoe track barriers, and the negative pressure test contributed to the well integrity failure. Engineering critical controls are great to have, but when their effectiveness is not tested, critical failures occur. Understanding and addressing the interdependencies between human factors, engineering design, and operational implementation is essential to prevent future events. Organisations should prioritise system-wide safety and resilience through continuous learning and adaptation, recognising the potential for failures to emerge from various sources. Next, holistic risk assessment. The incident highlighted the importance of comprehensive risk assessment throughout the life of a project. For instance, weaknesses in cement design, testing, quality assurance, and risk assessment contributed to the annulus cement barrier's failure to isolate hydrocarbons. Organisations need to emphasise proactive risk identification and mitigation, as well as understand the potential that small failures can cascade into larger events. I cannot count how many times I've worked for businesses who have not conducted a risk assessment upon commencement of their operations, but yet, when an event has occurred, have gone down the line of operator error or the operator failed to do X, Y, Z. Next, empowerment and decision making. The investigation showed that certain critical choices and decisions were made based on incomplete or misunderstood information. For example, the rig crew and BP well site leaders incorrectly interpreted the negative pressure test results, believing that well integrity had been established. Organisations and leadership teams, especially those top-level leaders like executives, need to encourage the development of a culture that empowers employees to make informed decisions, with an emphasis on questioning assumptions, seeking clarification, and challenging the perceived norms. This includes promoting those open communication and collaborations among different stakeholders, including subcontractors and contractors. Gone are the days when companies say, "Oh, we're bringing in a contractor to manage that risk," and then they never speak to that contractor again. All stakeholders, including contractors and suppliers, should be in constant communication throughout the life of the project. I worked for an organisation where a truck delivering steel components was being unloaded by our workers in the workshop area. The truck driver saw that all the components had been unloaded off the truck, so assumed he was good to leave. He jumped into the cab, started the truck and took off 20 metres down the road, before realising that one of our employees was actually still located on the back of the tray and had to jump to safety. The investigation showed that the unloading communication process had been created without the presence or involvement or input of the contractor. Yet, they were the ones that were impacted mostly by that change. Next, continuous learning and adaptation. The Deepwater Horizon event demonstrated that learning from the past and from past incidents, as well as incorporating those learnings into future operations, is crucial for preventing similar events. In this case, the rig crew's failure to recognise hydrocarbon influx and control the well in time contributed to the disaster. As you saw in my LinkedIn post regarding this event, I'm an advocate for continuous learning, and BP needed to learn from both the organisation's own experiences and from other industry incidents. This should involve regular reviewing and updating of those risk assessments, those procedures and training programs to ensure that they remain relevant and effective. In my career, I've worked for many businesses where the risk register or the risk assessment was a static document that never got reviewed, added to, changed, etc. We need to learn and understand that risk is dynamic and evolving. It changes all the time, and therefore these documents that we've built these risks from also need to be dynamic and evolving. Training programs also become stale really quickly, and you would be amazed at how much an engaging and enthusiastic trainer can actually influence the amount of comprehension that occurs during a group training or class. We need to steer away from death by PowerPoint, less is more, and really focus on the quality of the presentation, not just the content. Finally, maintenance and reliability. Next, let's look at maintenance and reliability. The event revealed potential weaknesses in the testing and maintenance of critical equipment such as the blowout preventer. For example, a fault in the critical solenoid valve and insufficiently charged batteries in the BOP control pods likely contributed to the failure of the BOP emergency mode to seal the well. The organisation needed to emphasise the importance of regular maintenance and testing of safety critical systems to ensure their reliability in emergencies. This includes understanding and addressing potential failure modes and implementing effective asset management practices to optimise equipment performance and safety. Finally, the absence of events does not equal the presence of safety. This one principle that stays close to my heart, and that is because I've seen it be proven time and time again. Just hours before the Deepwater Horizon event, the crew had celebrated a significant safety milestone: 7 years without a lost time injury. This achievement meant that for 7 consecutive years, the crew had not experienced an injury that resulted in a missed workday. This was seen as a noteworthy accomplishment and a testament to the rig's safety record. The celebration was held on the rig with senior management and crew members in attendance. The event was intended to recognise the efforts of the crew in maintaining a safe working environment and to encourage continued vigilance in safety practice. However, the disaster that unfolded shortly after the celebration highlights the limitations of using metrics like lost time injuries as the sole measure of safety performance. For those of you listening right now who are looking at your count boards for how many lost time injury or incident-free days you have had, or are about to have a celebration for breaking some sort of record, if you're counting years since your last event, or even close to it, let me tell you, it's wrong. I guarantee it. Yes, you may not have had an event reported in an X amount of time, but that doesn't mean that you've not had one at all. You will have, I guarantee it. It's just that that injured worker didn't want to be the one to make everyone lose out on their bonus or their gift, or be that one to drop that count board back to zero. How do I know? Because I've seen it firsthand, on numerous sites, not just one, across numerous industries, not just one. I've seen workers glue themselves back together after major injuries, literally use super glue instead of seeking medical attention and getting stitches or even surgery. I've seen workers take weeks of annual leave because they fell off scaffolding over 4 metres high and did their back, then drove themselves home and laid up in bed because they wanted to keep the safety bonus for the site. I've also seen numerous managers and safety professionals cover up injuries by rating their severity lower or entering them as non-work related, even though they clearly were, to save that counterboard from having to change and to ensure their tendering abilities remain the same. As a seasoned health and safety professional who unfortunately has seen a lot of not so flash goings on, what I would tell you is get rid of that countboard altogether. Don't count LTI or incident-free days. And if you really do need to count something, I know there are some organisations and even some health and safety peeps out there that really do need to track something. Count the number of times that workers feel safe to not start work until it is safe to do so. Or how much positive feedback has been collected by supervisors who are out in the field speaking to their workers. Or count how many times a worker indicates a conversation with a leader built trust. Or how many times your workers actually knew the names of your health and safety peeps. Or how many times they invited them into the field. Honestly, I could just go on and on. In closing this podcast, I want to remember those who lost their lives in the Deepwater Horizon Event. Let's use the lessons that we've learnt from this disaster to recognise that we need to value the insights and the expertise of our workforce in order to proactively create safer work environments. And if you are curious on how you can do that, or how you can get your organisation away from that zero mentality and more aligned with failing safely, please do reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn. I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, stay safe.